if you want to heal, you got to become more present, right? Because you have to become aware of where you're carrying resistance in life, and then you have to be willing to release that.
Hello, and welcome to the Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins podcast. We share people who've already healed themselves, along with health and wellness tips from myself.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. Today, my guest is Johnny Miller. And Johnny built a thriving practice as a personal trainer and gym owner, helping people overcome chronic pain, injuries, and surgeries through exercise, nutrition, and encouraged active, holistic lifestyles. However, in 2018, Johnny became severely sick with a chronic inflammatory disease in the form of Crohn's colitis. And at one point, he thought this disease would take everything from him. He had no idea that it would ultimately give him a life far greater than anything he'd ever experienced before. And now Johnny sees life as an incredible journey and believes wholeheartedly that life's toughest challenges provide us with the greatest opportunities for growth. So welcome, Johnny.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. So Johnny, you've come such a long way. Can I ask you, you had such a strong foundation in health and wellness.
Yeah.
What was it like suddenly finding yourself on the other side?
Well, I went very quickly. So I had been exercising pretty much my whole life. I've never really experienced life unhealthy or out of shape. I went from being a child athlete to an adult exercise instructor, and my career in fitness just kind of started leading in towards organic health naturally. And I had developed kind of the mindset that disease and sickness revolved around unhealthy habits, whether it's lack of exercise and how we eat, like most people do. And I had been working with my wife. We had opened a training facility, a brand new one. We had invested our life savings into a big new facility. And this was right about the time that my wife was pregnant. She ended up taking a little bit of time off. She got sick, and we nearly lost her and my baby at birth. And when I was working, trying to get through all of that, I went from healthy to sick virtually overnight. I literally was outside trying to take care of my daughter and started bleeding severely, and it never really stopped. So it was literally one day playing outside completely fine, and the next day bleeding to death, and spent quite a few years in that realm.
Gosh, and that must have been truly shocking to you, based on your thoughts, your lifestyle, your practices.
It was unreal. You can't even explain from even looking back at it now. It was more of like a shock and fear, and that is what I believe kept me sick for as long as I stayed sick. Was you kind of go into a panic when you think you've been doing all the right things, you've been exercising, you've been eating right, and suddenly something like this happens and they tell you it's a digestive disease. Right away, from my standpoint, I thought I'd been doing all the things to prevent it. So I did what everybody else would do with the holistic mindset, is I changed my diet a million times. I tried the carnivore diet, the AIP diet, the carbohydrate diet, and all these different things, thinking surely I must have done something wrong, right? I know it's holistic. I was just doing the wrong holistic. And with each new thing that I tried that failed, I just went deeper into the panic and the fear. And sitting where I am now, it's really easy to see what was driving my condition into the point where I got, which most doctors that I'd worked with all said that it was the worst Crohn's colitis that they had ever seen. Some of them weren't even sure it was Crohn's colitis. They said they'd never seen anything quite like it. And, once I went from the holistic approach to forced into the hospitals because I was literally dying, things got even worse because the medications that they were putting me on were all the things that I had taught everybody to get off of because of how bad I knew the side effects of everything that they could possibly put you on. And so again, the fear just kept going deeper and deeper into, you know, I'm a victim of this, and poor me, and what's going on? How come there's no answer for me? And, you know, you think of all the things you've done to deserve, you know, what you're going through. So yeah, it was a dark time, and it was really scary because it wasn't like traditional Crohn's or colitis. It was intense bleeding hundreds of times a day, and it was for years on end, 4 years straight. So yeah, it was scary.
It sounds it as well. I mean, any bleeding is scary, but persistent rectal bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you're kind of thinking, what on earth is going on?
Right. You know, and then it must be the vegetables. Ban all the vegetables. It's the vegetables that are making me bleed. And then yeah, I did everything you can possibly imagine. And oddly enough, the things that were the least painful were like pizza and burgers and the stuff that, you know, you're not supposed to eat when you have a condition like that. And oddly enough, that was like, it didn't help, but everything else made things worse. But everything that I was eating, there was so much resistance, and I use that word a lot. There was resistance around it. It was, I have to eat this way or I'm going to die. I didn't want to eat this way. I didn't want to go to every crazy grocery store across the country to make a pancake, right? So it got to the point where I couldn't really eat anything. So it was like, I might as well just eat anything, right? So that was tough. But looking back now, it's really easy to see that, you know, regardless of what type of diet you choose when you have one of these conditions, if you are in fear of it or you have resistance towards it or you don't like it, it's not really going to help because it's the nervous system that's driving the inflammation, and the nervous system drives digestion. And I think I played a game with you when we first met where, you know, when you stop and you think about the best thing you've ever eaten with your eyes closed and you can smell it, and you know, you put yourself right there, your mouth starts to water, and those are digestive enzymes. And when you're eating out of fear because you have a Crohn's disease or a colitis disease, when are you doing that? When are you digesting your food? So everything becomes inflammatory because you're really not digesting anything. So that was the loop that I found myself in, was you try to do the healthy things, but I'm still fearful. I'm still thinking, what if this doesn't work? Or if it doesn't work in one day, then I'm really panicked. I'm like, well, it said like, you know, I should see a result right away. And, you know, yeah, it was a rabbit hole of fear of medications, fear of the diet, and obviously fear of bleeding and then dying. And you weigh 80 pounds and you got 2 babies at home. There's a lot of angles going on all at once.
Absolutely, and you can get stuck in that as well, can't you? As your mind just spirals into a doom situation.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Can I ask now to lighten it up? What was your aha moment? When did you realize that all that fear was feeding it?
I've told this story a million times now, and it's a long story, and I know we're going to try to keep this short. So what I'm going to do, it can go off in a million directions, and there's so many cool directions that this story goes in because there are so many steps that just fell into place like dominoes at the right time. And what had originally happened is one of my clients, who's an oncologist at the University of Michigan, came to me and told me that he wanted me to speak with one of his friends. And the gentleman that he introduced me to wasn't a doctor, but he is this guy that all the doctors study because he had come around and do miracles where, I know, he had put his hands on someone's cancer and the doctors would watch it disappear under a CT scan. And apparently he can do it for some people and not for others. But I was introduced to this gentleman, and I was going with the hope that I was one of the ones that could receive a miracle. And right away he is like, Johnny, I know you came here for a miracle, but I don't do miracles. I've never done a miracle for anybody. I've only assisted people in them healing themselves. And I can't do that for you. And well, why not? And what he told me was that my frequency, my vibration was so low that he couldn't meditate and find me in the universe, that my signal was so weak that nobody could find me. And which went way over my head. And it went down this long spiritual conversation that led to nowhere at the time. What he told me was, Johnny, it's your resistance in your nervous system that causes your illness. It's the same for everybody that's sick. It's never different. When it comes to humanity, there's only one reason for your disease. And if it wasn't for your resistance, you could heal anything. And I was like, what? And then he called me a victim. He didn't call me a victim. He told me I was being a victim and I need to stop, and I need to stop watching the news. And this was right before everything blew up, like in 2020, right? When COVID came on the scene and everything went downhill. So I didn't listen to him because I didn't understand what he was trying to explain to me. This guy was way over my head at the time. But a year later, I found myself back in the hospital. I was already severely sick, so now I was severely, severely sick. So they came in and they told me that I was likely going to need another emergency surgery. So we went down and we did the scopes and all the fun stuff. And they said, yeah, there's no chance. You have to have this surgery right now. And they told me that in the morning that we'd be doing the surgery. And at that point, they'd gone down this whole rabbit hole of how bad it was, and they were going to cut open my legs and all sorts of stuff. But it was going to be a tough recovery, and I wouldn't be able to, do exercise and fitness stuff or be an athlete anymore. So I called my wife and I told her that I had seen a program in lymphatic therapy years ago, way before all this happened, because I work in fitness and therapy. And I was going to take the course to help people that had surgery. What I had heard is that if you had abdominal surgery, you needed to know how to do lymphatic therapy. Well, I was having abdominal surgery. So I was going to prove the doctors wrong, and I was going to be the best physical therapist in the world, and I was going to recover from this crazy surgery. Well, in the morning they came in and they were like, you're in such bad shape, we can't do the surgery. You need a better hospital with a better team of surgeons. Ours don't want to touch you. So as they were trying to set up something, probably at like Mayo or Cleveland Clinic, they said that I'd have to go home and it was going to be a 3-month wait. I was like, great, I'm bleeding to death. You just told me like I needed emergency surgery first thing in the morning or I'm essentially going to die. What am I going to do for the next 3 months? And they said, you'll just get more blood transfusions every couple of weeks, the way you've been going the last 4 years. You didn't die 4 years ago, you won't die today. So I went home and I started that program. And the first thing that the gentleman that teaches it started talking about was if you have an autoimmune condition. Now, I wasn't there to hear about autoimmune conditions. I was there for the surgery, but obviously it caught my attention. And I was like, why have I never heard of the lymphatic system? Like, what does this have to do with autoimmune disease? And no one's talking about it. Well, apparently doctors don't talk about it, and they're only just now being trained on it. The guy goes on to explain everything that went over my head when Mark Noel spoke with me about the spiritual stuff and the resistance in my nervous system. And what it comes down to is stress when we live in a state of fight or flight. And a lot of people, well, the one always common denominator when it comes to autoimmune disease is hyper-sympathetic dominance of the nervous system, which is a fight or flight response. And we get locked into this. I mean, look at society, look how we live. Everything's so fast paced. Everybody's this close to an autoimmune disease. But what ends up happening is, number one, like your electric field goes down. Your electromagnetic field is like 80% of your immune system, they're showing, and that's your aura. And when you're living in depression, anxiety, stress, anger, fear, all these different things, these emotions actually lower our electromagnetic field, which means we can't regenerate new, healing doesn't take place, right? We're electric beings, oddly enough. I didn't know that. But the other thing that happens is we hold tension in our body and our lymphatics become restricted. And that's the system that gets inflammation and toxins out. So if we're not clearing toxins and waste, everything's becoming inflammatory. And then you top that off with the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve being so involved with the lymphatics, but also so involved with stress and that hypersympathetic dominance. Well, the vagus nerve regulates the inflammatory response to every organ in your body, as well as digestion, production of stomach acid, all these things that go right hand in hand with autoimmune disease. which is every disease. So essentially what happens is we get stuck living in these cycles of fight or flight. And, you know, we know it or we don't. I would tell people that I wasn't stressed. They said, you think stress is part of it? I'm not stressed. I almost lost my daughter, my wife, my business. My dog died of cancer. I'm not stressed. Well, yeah, right. We all are. And even if we weren't sick, and that's what I had to realize, is it wasn't just the fear of what was happening when I became sick. It was how I had been living my life, dating all the way back to birth. I'm an ADHD kid, right? They say that ADHD is a hyper-sympathetic dominance nervous system response. Well, I've probably been living this way for 30 years, but when you go through something really traumatic, that's oftentimes the last drop in the bucket. And really traumatic can be different for everybody. You know, it might be a loss of your mom or your dad, or maybe you had a baby. It might not be a traumatic loss, like I had a baby. That's a beautiful thing. But the experience was traumatic, right? So there's all these different layers to it that play into how the body heals and how the nervous system interacts when it comes to inflammation. I mean, you can eat Oreo cookies, and that is nowhere near as inflammatory as the cortisol pumping through your veins when you're living under stress. So the aha moment was literally like on my deathbed. I figured all this out, and I was like, holy cow. And I started putting this together. So I enrolled in all these classes like lymphatics, vagus nerve, somatic movement, and I started to understand the physical therapy side of the spiritual, which was way over my head, but I could get like, I can turn a key. I can shut off hypersympathetic dominance, and I can shut off some inflammation. If I tap myself enough, if I roll, if I vibrate, and I thought it was these physical therapies. I really bought into the physical therapies because they do make you feel better, right? I got my lymphatics moving right away. You have more energy, you feel more alive. Stuff starts to improve, but eventually it came to the understanding that what I was doing was essentially meditation, right? You're learning how to release your resistance, your fears, all these different layers that keep us locked into it. And that was kind of the aha moment. There was actually one specific time that I was doing my therapy where it clicked, where I was like, okay, what I'm doing physically is helping me emotionally, it's helping me spiritually, and then it kind of locked in. So that was the turning point, and it was a long turning point. It took a whole year for me to get all these pieces in place. And I can tell, go ahead and ask me whatever it is you'd like to ask next. Sorry.
No, I love that, because I'm just thinking we are holistic. We are a mind, body, and a soul.
Yeah,
So we have to deal with healing in the mind, the body, and the soul, and not just separate out one thing or another thing, which is what Western medicine does today.
Yeah.
You've got your GI doctors, upper GI, lower GI, dealing with the Crohn's colitis.
Yeah.
But they're not trained in nerves. They're not looking at the mental aspects of it. They're not looking at the stressful, they're just purely wrapped in that physical, you know, what are you eating? And what's making this? So it's easy to get caught up in that fear when all that the Western medicine are bringing forth is negative information.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing with diet was if you look across the board, every book you read about someone that's healed, and you got a book right behind you about people that have healed. And my guess is it's the same in your book as what I'm going to describe, is that for everybody that healed an autoimmune condition like Crohn's or colitis, they had a different diet. They weren't exactly the same, right? But there was one common thread between them all. And somehow they shifted from a negative standpoint. And that's such a simplistic way to say it because it's deeper than that. But they shifted from a lower frequency to a higher frequency. And that allowed whatever it was that they were doing, whatever tool they chose, to work. And that was where I fell down the rabbit hole of, you read about this diet and it says like, use honey for your sweetener, because if you eat maple syrup, it'll kill you. And then the very next book says, eat maple syrup, because if you eat honey, and you're like, shit, I read too many books. Now, if I eat this way, I'm afraid because what this book told me, but if I eat this way, And it was nuts. I probably went crazy when it came to the diet and the supplements. I spent insane amounts of money trying that. And when I did ended up getting better, Sarah, like the guy that helped me the most, the spiritual guy, Mark, the healer, because I met with him several times since then. And he's never been able to do a miracle for me. But he has always got a lot to share with me. And what I learned from him, he'd teach me something and I'd say, that's awesome, Mark, but I should be vegan, right? And he'd be like, Johnny, it's not your diet. I'd be like, okay, I hear you, but it's carnivore. I'm going to go, Johnny, it's not your diet, right? So I had to get it through my thick skull that no matter the amount of education that I'd had that told me that it was the pesticides, it was the meat, it was the vegetable, it was none of that. So I started doing my therapies and working with my nervous system, and it was helping. And I started eating Oreo cookies all the time. Like I'd do my therapy and eat a dozen to 36 Oreo cookies before bed while drinking a half a gallon of milk, and I'd wake up in the morning feeling better, bleeding less. And I just kept doing this, but I would be so thankful for those cookies, and I enjoy every single bite of it. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm probably going to be sick, the way that I used to do it, right? So when you slow down and you become a bit more present with everything, and you find that just staying in the zone of enjoying, like your body knows what to do with it. But when we're hypersensitive to everything across the board, it's because our nervous system's all jacked up. We're in fear of it. You can't be not sensitive to stuff when your nervous system's on overdrive. You're literally, your cells hear your thoughts, right? And when we are constantly thinking fear, 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 our immune system's like, get out our swords. We're going to battle with everything we consume. And man, was that mind blowing to me just to get that concept, which I still struggle with. I still have to practice that. But you got to slow down and eat. I tell people, it matters more about where you are when you eat than what you're eating. And they're like, well, where should I be? I'm like, where you are when you're eating, right? So take that time. If you're going to fast, right? Fast until you are in a good place emotionally and then eat. If you find yourself out of that, fast until you find yourself in a place where you can eat and enjoy it. If you're not there, that's when you should fast, right? So people ask me about that all the time. Fast until you're into a place where you can eat comfortably and enjoy it. If you can't, then don't eat right now. If you're all worked up, don't grab food and run out of the house and stuff it down. It doesn't sit well, right? And it makes sense scientifically. It's not just the spiritual. You get it.
Absolutely. And you're bringing together there the mental and the emotional as well as the spiritual, because it is about being mindful, being in that moment with that food, but not just with the food. We can extrapolate that over life as well. Be more mindful in all those moments, which takes us out of that stress mode. Because in stress, we're in the future projecting what if, what's going to happen. Whereas when we're mindful in that moment, we're calming our nervous system down.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you mentioned that when we're in the future worrying about that, what I ended up learning about like the resistance in the nervous system, and this is such a key piece that I share with everybody, because once you understand like, hey, my stress is causing this. Well, what is it? What's causing the stress, right? It's not about avoiding the things that are causing the stress. It's about letting go of the resistance towards them. So if you look at resistance, you're either stressed about what's going on right now in your life. I don't like my sickness. I don't like how I feel. I'm in resistance to this moment, right? If I'm worried about the future, right, I'm in resistance to the possibility of tomorrow. So my nervous system is locked in conflict and fear of what could come. And then if you're like, man, I learned all this great stuff. If it wasn't for my upbringing or it wasn't for these past traumas, I would be in a better place. And now you're just in resistance to your life experience. So you have to understand that in order to get to where you are right now, in order to learn the lesson that I think is the ultimate life lesson, you have to go through these things, right? You can't resist what's brought you to this point. You have to learn to see it as a blessing, no matter how bad it was. I lost everything. I lost 2 businesses. One burned down. The other one got shut down to COVID. My dog died of cancer. I almost lost my wife and my daughter. My second daughter was born the day that the day that I finally gave in. I bled hundreds of times a day for weeks and months before I ever got to a doctor. I was dying on the hospital room floor at like 80 pounds, blood pouring out of me, while the nurses that were taking care of my wife, who was having a baby, were like, "What is going on with your husband?" And they were like, "I'm dying of Crohn's disease." And they brought in a stretcher and wheeled me out immediately after my daughter was born. And I spent 3 or 4 months in the hospital while my wife went home with 2 babies. Like, it was insane what we went through. And I had to learn to see that as a blessing. And wow, was that like a learning curve? That was years in and of itself, right? But inevitably, I can't have this conversation with you right now had I not gone through that. And my life is better, my work is better, my impact on people is better for having gone through that. And it's crazy that to think that you see someone go through a crazy trauma, a mom loses her children, and she goes on, right? And she does all these great things in the world and helping others. And you realize that everybody goes through a trauma. And that is our slingshot to bring us closer to God, to the universe, whatever it is that whatever it is for you, right? But we're all going there. We're all going to connect with it. And you're going to have to go through something that's going to help get you there. And that's what this is for everybody. For everybody that hears this, right? This is what it's about. This is why it happened. It's nothing you did wrong. It's not your diet. It's not your unhealthy ways. We have to learn and evolve in life. And this is a great opportunity to do that. And as you start to see that, the blessing is I live a better life. And so do the people that I've worked with that have seen and understood what I was trying to share, right? And I'm not saying life gets perfect, because it doesn't. But I'm telling you, you can get your life back. And a lot of the symptoms and the ailments that we have, people that have Sarah, this is crazy. People that have mild symptoms of ulcerative colitis, like I think of ulcerative colitis as like the worst thing you could possibly get. Crohn's and colitis is just god awful. And it is for a lot of people. But for some people, comparatively to what I went through, it's not even close. And man, I've seen people that are in that condition be able to flip that switch virtually overnight. And they're like, I don't have diarrhea anymore. I feel great. My energy's back. I was like, did you do the video I sent you? No, just from talking to you, man. I get it now. And it's like, wow, like, don't hold on to your troubles until you have to suffer like I did. And if you do find yourself in that place, don't panic, especially if you've heard this conversation, right? Don't panic. Understand that we all carry resistance, right? And it's more than just what I explained. It actually goes a lot deeper, but we only got 28 minutes on our clock right now. So you can get through it. Everybody can. And we can all turn the switch. And what I ended up finding is that there are specific tools that you can use. There's lots of them. There's so many. I can learn a new one every day if I want for the rest of my life. And that's good because your nervous system always responds best to something new. So I got tons of tools, right? You can turn the key from hyper-sympathetic to parasympathetic. You can't think your way out of these troubles, okay? They've shown that through all the studies of how the nervous system works. But you can tap a code, you can roll on the floor, you can vibrate, you can breathe, right? There's all these ways. I couldn't move when I started. Like I physically couldn't move. So I had to start with a vibration ball and breathing and working with my lymphatic system. And there's stages to it, right? There's stages to working with the nervous system. When you're super hyper dominant, less is more, right? And I had to learn that the hard way through taking courses where I did it. And the next day the instructor's like, so let me tell you, if you're really sick, don't do it like this. I'm like, well, Now I'm going to detox for a few days. So there are ways to work with the nervous system to be able to flip this switch. If you don't understand like the message I just shared to at least a slight extent, that we have to become more present, we should. We don't have to, we can do whatever we want. If you want to heal, you got to become more present, right? Because you have to become aware of where you're carrying resistance in life. And then you have to be willing to release that. And then you got to do something, find a practice that helps you to do it. Because I'll tell you, it's not always easy to let go of everything that's ever happened to you, right? You got to work through that. What I found was that for me, because of my background with physical therapy, is that these types of therapies, lymphatic therapy, vagus nerve stimulation, breath work, somatic movements, can all be brought right into exercise, right? Because I needed to exercise. I weighed 80 pounds. I was in diapers. I couldn't walk. Like, you got to get strong somehow. But traditional exercise actually overwhelms the nervous system, and it's designed to do so. And it's actually bad for I would not exercise the way that I did for 20 years if I knew what I knew now, right? I just wouldn't. So exercise had to become different. As I got better and I was like, okay, how am I going to get back to work? I got to learn the internet. They took my business from me. I lost everything. I got to put this stuff online. Well, how am I going to do that? I didn't know, because I didn't exercise the same way. I couldn't go get my old clients and be like, let's go do some HIIT class, right? I had a physical therapy background. I worked a lot already with people on injuries and pain. I had just had a major surgery, so I started working with people that had abdominal surgeries and teaching the lymphatic stuff. And I wanted to help autoimmune people with the lymphatic stuff. I have a whole lymphatic program that most people should go through, but it wasn't connecting with people. People weren't coming to do it. They're like, what's this? And they thought it was like marketed as a cure for exercise or for lymphatic. It's not a cure. None of it's a cure. They're all tools. So inevitably, all these therapies became part of my exercise program for me. And when I started moving back into exercise, it was for people with autoimmune disease. It was for people it was for people like me, because that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I do now, right? So I started teaching exercise this way. And over the last year or 3 years, working with my one-on-one clients, one of them really, really talked me into, Johnny, you got to start filming videos. You got to get a like, I couldn't turn on a computer. Fortunately, she stayed by my side. My wife helped me immensely with this as well. But we figured out how to do the tech stuff. And we put together a program that I call Heal 30 that just incorporates these therapies and these ideas into exercise. And why do you need to do that? Well, because people like to exercise. They want to get stronger. They want to have more endurance, and they hear exercise and they're drawn to that, right? So it's a gateway in to help them with other aspects too. However, people are more apt to make time for exercise versus a meditation, especially if meditation goes over your head. If breathwork goes over your head like it did for me, all these things went over my head. I'm not going to go see a lymphatic therapist 5 days a week and spend $125 a visit to get my lymph moved, but you can learn to do it yourself, just like you can learn to exercise, right? So if you learn to do these therapies and you put it in your exercise program, one, you're more apt to do it. And if you do it with the understanding of, hey, we're working with our nervous system, we want to spend more time in the parasympathetic, right, where there's less inflammation, the body heals naturally, your electromagnetic field goes up, right, you're more present. You want to get to that point. So if you do like a little workout in the morning, or a practice is what I call it, and a breath and movement practice where you breathe and you roll around in bed and you stretch out, and it becomes a little bit of a meditation, right? It simply helps calm the nervous system, which is what meditation does. You start the day better, right? In a better place. Then you get to noon and your kids are screaming because you're a homeschool dad and you're just about to lose it again. And you settle things down, and at some point midday, you go and you do your workout, right? And your workout also incorporates these same ideas, right? You don't just jack your nervous system up, but you come down from your workouts and you learn movements that help your subconscious nervous system feel safe, right? Most of us have terrible movement imbalances, especially if you've been in a hospital bed. If your body doesn't move well, subconsciously your nervous system recognizes that as instability and puts tension in your body, which does what? Restricts circulation, increases inflammation. So even how we move affects our nervous system and autoimmune disease. So if you start exercising in a way that considers that, right? I'm not saying you can't do traditional exercises. I use yoga, I use strength training, I roll around on the floor, I do movements that they teach for kids that are autistic, right? Because why? Because it's a nervous system regulating, right? But it also connects the body. So if you can do these things in your workout, you leave your workout feeling better, right? More energized, you stay with it. And then if you can put yourself to sleep, because sleep is such a huge part of healing, right? You don't heal if you don't sleep, right? You got brain fog, right? Autoimmune people, you got brain fog. Your brain shrinks at night only when you sleep, and then power washes itself with cerebral spinal fluid before it drains through your lymphatic system and gets inflammation away from your brain. If you're not getting your nervous system calm before you sleep, you're not getting there, right? So you want to go to sleep in the parasympathetic state. You're not going to sleep in the parasympathetic state if you're not sleeping. That simple. Roll around on the floor, take a few breaths, do your movement practice, give your water a blessing and drink it, and then go to sleep, right? You'll wake up feeling better the next day. And it's not instantaneous. It takes practice, right? That's why I call them practices. So this Heal 30 program incorporates everything that I've just explained as a way that you can have like a roadmap of like, okay, what do I do? Because what do I do once I learn that my nervous system is playing a huge, if not the only role in my autoimmune disease? What do I do?
And can I just speak to that, Johnny? All of those practices that you've talked about, the vagus nerve, the lymphatics, the breathwork, and there was another one. They all bring us into that moment, don't they? They all bring us into that present moment.
They can. They don't always. Okay. So you can't think that the tools are the things that are doing the work. You have to know what it is that you're wanting to do. You have to be willing to go there, and then you have to be willing to practice it, because most people, breath work is tough. Like I could not sit down and breathe 3 breaths without my brain being like, you're bleeding to death out your hind end. Shouldn't you be in the bath, right? There's all these things, right? Yours is probably not that intense, right? But there's things that get on your mind that drive that. So it's a practice and an understanding to be easy on yourself, because your nervous system's been programmed to give you alerts for everything that could possibly go wrong. The problem is we think we're our nervous system when we think that thought train is us, when really it's just our nervous system being like, hey, Johnny, do you want to worry about that blood? Hey, Johnny, do you want to worry about your kids? Hey, Johnny, do you want to worry about your failing business? All these things, right? You go back to your breath, take another breath. What I do with my practices and what I teach is I use a vibration ball, and I combine breath work with lymphatic therapy or movement every single time. Well, where's the vagus nerve stimulation? It's in all of it, right? All these things, you can't separate them off. So you might as well do them together while you're there. If I'm going to put the ball on me, it's going to be breathing, it's going to be lymph, it's going to be vagus. It's all there. What I would do is I'd put the ball on myself and I'd feel the vibration, because there's something very powerful about feeling, right? If I put a rock in your hand and I tell you to feel it and describe how it's shaped and the bumps in it, and you close your eyes and you do that, you can only be one place. You have to be present feeling that rock in order to do that. You can't be anywhere else. So if I teach you to start feeling for specific things, right, especially things that help connect you with the body when it comes, I'm looking at this from a lens of physical therapy, like exercise too, right? So if we can do this in a way that helps connect our body, so we walk and run better, jump higher, we produce more power, our back doesn't hurt, everything's better. So if we're feeling how we move and we're feeling how our breath moves in and out of our body, we become more present. And if we can do that, like put a ball here and say just 3 times, breathe in, hold it, let it out slow, right? What I find is that you get in practice, and I can get about 2 to 3 breaths. Sometimes I can't, right? But you can get 2 to 3 breaths. Most people can. And as you start to do that, and then it's okay to lose your train of thought, because we're going to move over here now. And now we're going to get right back to that breath, regain our train of thought, and now feel what happens. Sit the ball down and now feel your blood flowing, right? Feel your heartbeat. I'm tricking you into being there, right? You're training your nervous system to become more present. And then it's not just that hour that you're doing this stuff or the 30 minutes that you're doing this stuff. You carry the state of presence with you afterwards, right? You leave and now you want to be like, people think the video is the meditation. If you're watching this, listen close. The video is not the meditation. The meditation starts after the video, right? We leave our practice and then we go be present and we enjoy our kids. We enjoy whatever it is that we have to do. You don't have to change life. And that's what I mentioned on earlier is if I have to leave everything that causes me stress, I'm not winning this battle. You have to learn to stop resisting the things that you're resisting because they wouldn't be stressful. They wouldn't be a conflict if you weren't resisting them, right? Well, I don't like the way my life is right now. Well, tough, right? You're there right now and you're there for a reason. Find 10% more fun and enjoyment in what you're doing. Because what will happen is your nervous system will become less triggered to the things that you're normally shaking your fist at little by little over time. And as you're doing this, your electromagnetic field is going up, which is really weird. I won't go drag you down that rabbit hole, but you become more of a light, right? Your light starts to shine. You're not becoming more of light. You're already a light, but your light's starting to shine through a little bit. And then things in your life start to shift in a different way. People come into your life. Events start to unfold where you can move to the life that would be less stressful for you. But we live in reality. So you have to slowly step out of where you're at now to make it. There needs to be a pathway from the life you're in to the life you want. And in order to do that, you need to find a way to enjoy the life you're in. And I know that sounds crazy. People are like, oh, you're nuts. Yeah, I know. I was in diapers, bleeding hundreds of times a day. I had lost all my money, all my businesses. My wife hated me. My kids were screaming and crying babies, and they were in the most stressful environment in the world. I get it, right? It's hard to find 10% more enjoyment in your life. Lay down with a vibration ball. It feels good. That was my 10% more enjoyment, right? I hurt so bad that just putting a ball on me was enough to enjoy life more. And slowly but surely, I got to where I am now, right? We can all do it. Like I said, if you just got a little diarrhea, and I'm not minimizing that, but life is not that bad, and there's always ways that we can find our connection again. It seems bad when you're not connected with your source. You're not connected with your energy, right? And we have to find a way to get back to that. And, you know, that can be what I was told was radical acceptance. And that's why I didn't like the guy that initially helped me. He's like, got to find that radical acceptance, Johnny.
Yeah, and I love that, Johnny, because basically what you're saying is find what you love or you like to do and find time to do more of it.
Yes, and then enjoy it while you're there. Don't be thinking, I should be doing something else, right? You have to find your time for yourself, right? And if you need a physical therapy tool to do that, because, man, there's nothing better than doing lymphatic work with some breath work and vagus nerve stimulation. You feel 1,000 times better. People do it one time and they're like, I can't believe it. Like, I've felt so bad for so long. I've done so many supplements. There's no way that just rubbing my collarbones like that in my chest for 5 minutes made me feel that much better. It does, right? So for me, I had to have the physical understanding that lymphatic therapy does indeed get inflammation out of your body, right? If your lymphatics are restricted, if this is tender, like all these major areas of your lymph is tender and swollen, you're not getting inflammation out, and you're not getting anything from the supplements you're taking, and you're not getting anything from the healthy diet. It all becomes inflammatory. If you're stressed and you're still trying to eat healthy, you're wasting, I hate to say that, but it's the truth. You are wasting your money on all the supplements and all the expensive food grown from your farmer down the road that doesn't use any, like, I get it. Like, I did that. And I wish I didn't, because if you get yourself right, if you reconnect with yourself, with God, it's God. Cat's out of the bag. It's God, right? There's a God, guys. You got to get back to that in some way, right? You don't have to call it that if you don't want to. But I'll tell you what, the second that you start enjoying life more, whether you want to think so or not, you're connecting with God. There you go, right? So you have to do that. right? And if you do that and you do it well and you do it with enough consistency, you can retrain your nervous system to quit falling back into old ways. Because that's a trick, is 30 days. I wanted to call this Heal 90. And my clients were like, you're out of your mind. No one would touch that with a stick. I was like, why? And they were like, who's going to commit to 90 days? I'm like, well, you better get ready, because healing is a life commitment here. You're not going to turn around and go back to your old ways after this. That doesn't happen, right? So what's next? Well, I got more videos for you, right? That's why it's exercise, because exercise always progresses. Well, guess what? So can our breath work. So can our meditation. So can our lymphatic therapies. In fact, they have to. They have to, right? Because the nervous system always responds best to a new stimulus, something new. We're meant to create and meant to learn and do new things, right? That's part of it, right? Why can't that be part of exercise? Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And what you're saying actually is the stress is all out there. It's our thoughts, our perceptions of everything out there.
It's our resistance to what's out there.
Yeah, and we're putting a lot of emphasis on that rather than coming back into ourselves and being with ourselves. That's what I'm taking away from what you're saying.
Yeah, I was told to quit watching the news, and I didn't get it at the time. But right now, if you look out there, there's very clearly a spiritual war going on. There's very clearly a political war. There's a war on the mind going on out there, right? That is to distract you from the spiritual war within, right? If we are at battle and at resistance with what we're seeing out there, we're losing the battle within, right? And that's what they want to distract you from, is that if you're focused here, if you're focused on our crap, we got you. We're sucking your energy. We're draining you. We're draining your life. And, people talk about like the conspiracy that they're putting poisons in our food and stuff and this stuff. And they know that I would say that the conspiracy is that someone out there knows that it's our emotional body, our spiritual body, that is really the 80% that we need to be worried about. And they're trying to distract us from that. And you can go down the rabbit hole of reading about all the toxic foods and the bad companies and how only one company in the world owns all the food that we make. Trust me, I know everything about everything that's going on out there. I went down every rabbit hole there is, and there's a lot to it. You can't outrun it, unfortunately. We only have one way to protect ourselves against that, and that is us, right? And there's always a thread that runs through all the books, okay? I'm familiar with the Bible. I'm not I don't identify with anything because I don't see a direct truth in any one at the moment, right? But what I will tell you is that the Bible talks about that you put on your armor, right, to protect you. And putting on your armor is walking with God, or, connecting with Jesus Christ if it's Christianity and you're talking about the Bible. I 100% believe that the armor is God, okay? Well, that armor happens to scientifically be the electromagnetic field that surrounds our body, right? We all live in this omnipresent electromagnetic field. How can you live inside something that's omnipresent and not be part of it, right? You're part of it. And when we put on our suit and armor, what we're doing is we're letting go of our fear. We're letting go of our anger, our resistance. The big ones are our guilt and our shame, right? We're only forgiven if we forgive ourselves, right? We're always forgiven. We're always healed. They tell you, like, you're healed, accept your healing, right? Like you've heard that if you're Christian, most likely. How do you accept your healing? By putting on your armor. How do you put on your armor? By letting go of the fear, the guilt, the shame, the anger. You have to forgive yourself. You're already forgiven, but so often we hold on to that fear, that guilt, that shame, that anger, right? And it's like God is on the other side, standing there with his hands open, like, I've taken it, like, drop it off. But we're not dropping it off because we can't think our way out of it. You can't think your way out of dropping your guilt, shame, and fear. But guess what you can do? You can vibrate and roll around on the floor and breathe, which becomes meditation. Here's a crazy thing, and I draw this for people. You got 2 more seconds? Can I draw you a diagram? This is a cool one that I saw one time. If you are this stick figure here, and you are looking over here at your problems, right? See me over here, and I'm looking over here at my problems. When you meditate or you go into prayer and you connect with and you let go of your fear and stuff like that, right? What you're doing essentially is you're doing these therapies to take you from where you're standing here over to here. And from your new location, right, from down here, now you're looking at your problem from a different angle, right? So when you do these therapies that I teach, or you go into prayer or you meditate, what you're trying to do is you're trying to shift to this new perspective. Well, what does that mean? You're shifting out of fight or flight into the parasympathetic. And when you're in the parasympathetic, guess what happens? Your electromagnetic field goes up. Oh, what does that mean? It means you're more connected with God. Oh, hey, that's how you connect with God, by letting go of my resistance. Now, from that place, from a more divine perspective, suddenly the things that seemed so bad don't seem so bad. You can start to let go of that resistance. And if you practice that enough, it becomes really easy. You can get in a big argument with your spouse, or I can't believe they think that way, blah, blah, blah. Go down, do some breath work, and then you're like, I need to go give them a hug and apologize right this second, right? Because you're shifting your perspective when you shift your nervous system out of fight or flight, right? But if you're looking at your disease and your ailments right now from a fight or flight state, which I promise you, if you are struggling with an autoimmune disease, you have to shift it, right? And that's what it's an exercise program, right? It's an exercise program, but this is what's behind it. And if you use these tools in the exercise program appropriately, without judging yourself, right? If you miss a day, it's okay. If this is a fitness challenge, like you see, like the 90-day challenges, it's not that. This is just to help you develop a new routine, which I would call a ritual, because routines become routine and no one likes a routine. But a ritual is something that you create a blessing around. It becomes more spiritual in a way, right? You connect with it more, because that is, in the end, that's what you want to do. You want to spend more time in the parasympathetic. You want to make it science. Now let's take it all the way back from the woo-woo. You got to spend more time in the parasympathetic. You can use these exercises to do that. As you spend more time in the parasympathetic, you're going to feel better. Your energy is going to go up. You're going to change the lives of the people that are around you. All that happens, but it only happens from the parasympathetic state. So the tools are about getting you there. And once you're there, then that's your job, to stay present and start practicing a new understanding of how we approach life, because it's a new understanding. Society does not approach life this way. They don't want you to. It's a new understanding and a new way of looking at it. And the only way that you're going to hear this message, the only way anybody's going to get this, Sarah, is if they're in the place where they need it now, right? I probably had to have my back against a wall, and I don't know what your back against the wall needs to be. Mine had to be bleeding to death profusely, just about to die. I don't want it to get to that point for anybody. But if you're not hearing this message now, it'll likely get to the point where you feel that way before you have to make a shift. And that's what it's all about, is we have to experience some form of trauma, some sort of suffering, unfortunately, in order to move forward. And then when you look back, it's like, Sarah, if I told you my whole life story right now from another perspective, you would be like, somebody save this man. Like, it is the most intense. I mean, there's always someone that suffered more, but it is insane. You cannot describe it. The story would just go on and on of just horrible event, one after another. And like, I laugh at it now, because it's like, well, it was only 4 years, right? And it was worth the price that I paid. So like, it is what it is, but it was nuts.
We build resilience and strength and skills from
Right.
what we go through, and quite often it's life-changing, like it has been for yourself and myself.
Yeah.
It radically changes our lives. We become different people.
Yeah.
And we turn our pain into purpose.
Yeah.
And we use that to help other people because we've been there, we've walked that path, we know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's horrendous.
It is.
So we can empathize with the people that we work with because we've walked in those shoes.
It's nothing that anybody should have to experience. And I remember telling one of my mentors in the early days, I was like, man, like I finally see it as like I get it now. Like there's some experiences that I had that the light bulb kind of clicked. And I was like, now I just got to raise my girls in a way that they don't have to, I don't want them to get Crohn's disease. And he laughed and he was like, did you just not tell me that this was the greatest blessing of your life? Would you not want your daughters to have that? And wow, was that tough, right? But the truth of the matter is, I have some tough daughters. They are super independent. They do not like authority. They don't want to be told what to do. And there's going to be a point in their life where they're going to have to learn lessons that I might not be able to teach them just because I had the experience myself. And I am finally getting to the point, and I don't wish anything on my daughters. I hope that nothing ever bad happens. But what I wish more is I hope that I can teach them how to understand it when it happens. Because I really don't think that anybody's getting through this without some degree of it. Excuse me. Without some degree of that, right? And it's how we choose to handle that dictates whether we're going to suffer for the remainder of our life and die from our disease, or we're going to find life again, maybe in a different way, right? Maybe in a way that we didn't perceive or expect. And that's a whole part of it too, is we don't know what's best for us, and we don't know what's best for our children or anybody else. And when we think we do, and we try to resist anything outside of what we think is our best plan for them, what are we doing? We're putting ourselves back into that resistance. The deeper you go with this. And I think it's a life learning experience. And that's why, Heal 30 gets people started. And at the very least, it gives them physical therapies that are going to help them feel instantly better physically, right? And if they connect with me, they understand what they're hearing from this podcast. Like if they hear it from this is what's going to guide you the rest of the way. And I don't care if you continue with my programs or not, you can turn anything into this idea once you understand that this is what life's about. Yeah, I hope you train with me forever. I hope you buy my video channel for a few dollars a month and you exercise with me and you become a great athlete one day, because we're all athletes, right? Anybody that moves has an athletic body. And if you want to move well, be strong, who doesn't want to do that? So for me, I still love that. I still love sports and exercise. My kids are incredible athletes, and they know more about the human body. They can tell you about every posterior and anterior sling and muscle group and how they work. And they're 5 and 8 years old, right? So it's fun for us. They're learning activities. We exercise together, but they're learning it in a way that, my daughter has ADHD. I know she does. I know what it looks like. I've had it. It runs in our family. If it's genetic, I think it's a nervous system genetic, right? We all are born with the nervous system responses of our parents and ancestors. So she has that. And you can use these exercises. I use them with them when I'm training them for sports and gymnastics. Like we work on our breathing with our movement. We're not moving. You're slow down. We're breathing, and they understand it. And Layla knows that when she gets worked up, she can do her breath work. Does she always do it? No. Do we work with her? Yes. Right. But I mean, if I'm still practicing at 40 years old, what can I expect out of an 8-year-old? It's a learning experience for all of us. But yeah, just a different way of looking at exercise and being able to take care of ourselves in a slightly more deeper holistic way, right? It's my holistic has now grown. So I don't even know what it'll be another 5-10 years from now, because 10 years ago, I would have never expected my holistic health practice to be having a conversation like this. I mean, it's mind blowing even to me. So, yeah.
And thank you, Johnny, for sharing all that.
No problem.
You could share one tip with the audience now, somebody going through Crohn's colitis. What would that be?
Stop watching the news is the first tip that I was left with. I'll give you one step further on that, so you're left with an explanation of it. But if you turn on the news this morning, I don't care what side of the argument you're on, you're going to hear a story that's going to create an emotional feeling in your body. I mean, we just talked about this, right? I don't hear a horrible story without feeling it for the whole day, if not the whole week. If I listen to one story like that, I got to even watch what comes up on my news feeds, on my social media, because they're meant to bait you, right? It's literally what do they call, tabloid magazine. Every news article, every headline, I've gone through training for marketing. They know how to manipulate your emotions with a tagline, and it was intentional. And if you're turning on the news, you are inviting in a energy, you're inviting in a stress, and we need to spend more time out of that state. Now, if you can find a news channel that's going to give you the good news every day, right? Think about the good news. Get the good news every day. That's what you focus on, right? So you will immediately feel better if you start, you're not avoiding something, you're just not tuning in, right? Don't tune into it. You get a choice every morning whether you turn that channel on or not. Don't turn it on. And if it's a social media feed, block it, turn it off. You know what ones drive your emotions and what ones stick on your thoughts and make you feel injustice, right? All these things. This is how they distract you from the spiritual battle within, right? So that's my tip, is you got to stop watching the news. Go outside, get in contact with the ground. Grounding helps your electromagnetic field and kills inflammation, right? And it's not just me saying that. There's books on it. So it sounds weird, but walk barefoot on the ground. That'll probably help right away too. So those are my 2 tips. No news, get outside.
Love it. Thank you. And where can people find you, Johnny?
So my website is youcanheal.fit. The Heal 30 program is right there on the homepage. That's really your ticket to meeting me, to working with me in any way, shape, or form. There are some people that will sign up for the program and do, private coaching or something like that. There's no perfect way for anybody, right? So the Heal 30 program is 30 days that teaches you a lot of what I do. There's going to be emails that come out to you every day that talk a lot like I'm talking now, just to help keep you in the mindset of using the program in the way that I think will help you the most. But as you go through the Heal 30 program, you're going to sign up. You're going to get a best start session with me where we just get together on a Zoom channel like this one. You can tell me about yourself. We can talk about your health, what's going on, and how we can, shape the program to best suit what you need to do for your life. Some people got 10 minutes in the morning, others don't. So there's no perfect routine. It's just, I like to say, once I teach you the concept of what it is we're doing, you can do anything with it, right? I'm not teaching you how to do it. I'm teaching you the concepts, and I'm giving you guided videos that walk you through. So like if you want to be guided through the practice, you don't want to think about what to do, which who would? It took me years and years and decades to learn this stuff. Let me guide you through it. Find a practice that you like, start doing it regularly, start implementing the ideas that I talk about, when I talk, and that's it. So find me on my website. You can email me, set up your best start session, however you want to find me. Message me on social media. I'm out there. My phone number is out there. I'm not hard to find if you know where to look. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and healing on my podcast.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. Sorry if I went a little bit over on time, but I do appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone who you think will benefit. And can you leave me a review wherever you've listened to it to help me reach more people? Thank you.